forget the time when I stood outside the open window of a little child's room on Christmas Eve and heard him recite this poem that's all about me, Santa Claus. Yes. I enjoyed it so much that I learned it myself, and I think I'll recite it for you now. I guess most of you will know it. It's called The Night Before Christmas. Was the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Dunder and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, dash away, dash away. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky, so up the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up in a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke had encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face, a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings. Then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of the thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all good night." Say, boys and girls, I've got a good idea. I'm going to sit right down here and play some Christmas songs for you. And this time, I want all of you at home to sing right along, but without any help from the polar elves because they're too busy at the moment at their workbenches. So this time, you're on your own. But let's hear you sing right along as I play now. The first song is an American Christmas carol. Oh, little town of Bethlehem. Here we go now. Oh, little town of Bethlehem. Sing out now. All right, all together. Yet in thy dark streets shineth. I don't think you sang loud enough that time, though. Now let's hear you really sing loud on these next 2 songs, which were originally sung in Germany. The first is Away in a Manger, and then O Tannenbaum, also known as O Christmas Tree. Now, Away in a Manger. Away in a manger, no crib for his bed, the little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where he lay. The little Lord Jesus asleep in the hay. Now, O Tannenbaum, here we go. Christmas tree, oh, Christmas tree. Good. Yes, that was much better. I really heard you sing that time. Now, sing these next three songs just as loud. This first one is called It Came Upon a Midnight Clear, and it's one of the few Christmas carols that originated in America. Here we go. It came upon a midnight clear. It came upon a midnight clear, that glorious song of old, from angels bending near the earth to touch their harps of gold. Peace on the earth, goodwill to men, from heaven's all-gracious King. The world in solemn stillness lay to hear the angels sing. Good. Now here's one you all know, even though it first was sung in France. It's called The First Noel. A first Noel that the angels did say was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Now all together loud. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. Very good. Now here's one of the most popular carols all over the world, Joy to the World, which was first sung in England many, many years ago. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive a king. And heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. You know, boys and girls, no matter where you are from, and no matter where you may now live, Christmas is the time for good cheer and happiness for all. And mothers and fathers throughout the ages have always taken time out when Christmas comes round to tell their children special stories. And these stories have gone from one family to another and one country to another until they are known all over the world. Now, one such story is The Elves and the Shoemaker, which was first told hundreds of years ago in Germany, but which nowadays is known in every corner of the earth. There was once a shoemaker who, through no fault of his own, had become so poor that at last he had only enough leather left to make one pair of shoes. That evening he cut out the shoes so he could work upon them the next day. Then he lay down quietly, said his prayers, and fell asleep. In the morning, he went into his shop to work upon the shoes. But what did he see? Why, the shoes were standing on the table, all sewn and polished. The shoemaker was amazed, and he did not know what to think. Who could have done them for him? He picked the shoes up in his hand to examine them more closely. Why, they were so neatly sewn that not a stitch was out of place. They had been done by master hands. Later that day, a rich man came into the shoemaker's shop. He was so pleased with a pair of shoes that he paid twice the price for them. Now the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for 2 pairs of shoes. He cut them out in the evening, and the next morning went into his shop to work upon them. But he had no need to, for when he got there, the shoes were already finished. Both pairs were so handsomely done that they were quickly sold, and then the shoemaker had enough money to buy leather for 4 pairs of shoes. Again, he cut the leather out in the evening, and again he found the shoes all finished the following day. And so it went. What he cut out at evening was finished in the morning, and soon the shoemaker was once more a comfortable and wealthy man. Now, it happened that one evening, not long before Christmas, the shoemaker said to his wife, "Let us sit up tonight to see who was making the shoes for me." His wife was willing, so he cut out some leather, and then they hid themselves in a corner of the shop, behind some clothes which were hanging there. At first, all was dark and still. Then, at midnight, 2 little men came. They sat down at the shoemaker's table, took up the cut leather, and began to stitch and sew and hammer so neatly and quickly with their tiny fingers that the shoemaker and his wife could not believe their eyes. They did not stop until everything was finished. Then they ran swiftly away. When they had gone, the shoemaker's wife said, "The little men have made us rich, and we ought to show our gratitude." They were running about with nothing on, and since it is nearly Christmas and so very cold, they must be freezing. I will make them little shirts, coats, waistcoats, and trousers, and I will even knit each of them a pair of stockings, and you can make them shoes. The shoemaker agreed. When evening came, they had everything ready, and they laid out their Christmas presents on the table and hid themselves to see what would happen. And at midnight, the elves came skipping in to their work. But instead of leather, they found the clothes the shoemaker and his wife had made for them. At first, they were astonished. Then they were overjoyed. With the greatest speed, they put on and smoothed down the handsome clothes. And then they sang, "Now we are so fine and neat. Why make shoes for others' feet?" Then they hopped and danced about, and they leapt over chairs and tables and out the door, and the shoemaker never saw them again. But you may be sure they had many Merry Christmases. And so did the shoemaker, for he did well as long as he lived, and he never was in want again.